We're about to resume, so if you'd like to find your seats. Okay, we are back. We're going to do item number 7. This is a public hearing. Preliminary plats for Wildflower. Plats A, A1, A, A1B, A2, A3, B1, B2, B3, C1, and R. Located west of Harvest Hills. And the applicant is Nate Ship. Is he here?
Yes,
today?
he is.
Nate, would you like to come join us? And we'll turn the time over to our senior planner, well, actually to our planning director, for the presentation.
Yes, again, filling in for Nora. Yeah, tonight we've got a request for 10 preliminary plats in the Wildflower development. Location you see here, just west of Harvest Hills. Coming from the community plan, we're looking at the area you kind of see surrounded by that red box. Obviously, the whole Wildflower development is quite large, so it's going to be a piecemeal development over time. So what we're looking at now are 10 subdivision plats within that red area between Harvest Hills and the future Mountain View corridor, just to orient you where what we're looking at. Right now we're looking at 195 single-family lots in this development phase, again located between Mountain View corridor and Harvest Hills and the Saratoga Chase development. Access would be currently through Harvest Moon Drive and Harvest Hills Boulevard. Of course, at such times when the Mountain View corridor comes in and the frontage roads, then there would be connections also to the frontage roads. And you can see then the diagram on here showing the various breakdown of where those plats are with those orange lines. This is a lotting plan taken out of the village plan. You can see here that each of these neighborhoods are given a name and then a different density and lot size, 8 to 14,000 feet, for example, in Primrose, you see in the blue. Then working its way around Harvest Hills, as you see there. The smallest then would be Daisy, which would be between 4,500 square feet and 7,000 square feet. Again, this comes right out of the approved village plan, so these lot sizes, these locations, these are in the approved plan as you see here. And then of course what the applicant has submitted for the subdivision plats do comply with this layout of the lotting plan. Just a breakdown here of the various plats and how many lots you see are located within each plat, just for a reference point. And then our staff recommendation would be a positive recommendation to the City Council on those 10 Wildflower plats.
Is that your full presentation? Okay, thank you very much. Hello. Would you like to introduce yourself for the record, please?
You bet. My name is Nate Ship. I am the manager of Sunrise 3 LLC, which is the entity that owns this portion of the Wildflower project. We're excited to finally be here tonight. This is a long road that we've been on for the last 3 years, but we are excited to see this project get off the ground finally. I really do appreciate the time and energy that the staff has put into this and their thoroughness and professionalism in the process. I would add maybe a couple of additional comments to the staff report if you would like.
This is your time.
So
we'll get there.
A couple of additional thoughts would be, one, we are very sensitive to the fact that this project is adjacent to the existing homes in the Harvest Hills neighborhood, and we look at them as neighbors. We do intend on keeping the construction traffic for this project out of the subdivision. We are asking our contractor to access from the south through our other property so as to avoid having to bring those big trucks and things into through the neighborhoods. Now, I'm not sure I'm not a policeman, but I will put that in the contract with my contractor, and we'll do our best to enforce that.
Thank you. That was a concern back then in 2014.
Yes. So we remember that, and we will continue to work for that. Another point of update for you, we have been meeting at length with our friends at UDOT, and as of today, they reaffirmed again that their intent is to have this portion of the Mountain View corridor open by August, September of this year. That's both travel lanes on the east and the west. So,
And
That's-
this year meaning 2018.
yes.
Wow.
So it's, that's from their engineers. They are working to release that out to bid very quickly, and they've got a very tight time frame for construction.
How far south are they going to be completed at that time?
So my understanding is that they will be extending from 2100 north all the way around to the Pioneer Crossing connection.
Wow.
So that's great news for the next question of how are the people who move into this area going to be accessing their homes. Well, I would hope that they would use the new Mountain View corridor, and we hope that will also improve the connection for the Harvest Hills residents to get in and out of their homes as well.
This is not California. Mr. Ship, could you give us your address for the record, please?
Yes, I apologize. I'm at 1099 West, South Jordan Parkway, South Jordan, Utah, 84095.
And you brought someone with you today?
I did. This is Mindy Danzy. She is,
Mindy.
Well, she can speak for herself.
Mindy Danzy with DAI. I'm the entitlement specialist, just here for support.
And Mindy, what's your address for the record, please?
I'm also at 1099 West South Jordan Parkway.
Thank you
South
very
Jordan.
much. Was there anything else you wanted to add to the presentation tonight?
No, I'd just be happy to answer any other questions that you might have. This is I think the third time the Planning Commission has seen this layout. It is the same layout that we brought at the time we did our community plan. It's the same layout that we brought when we did our village plan. We haven't changed any of the lot configurations other than to accommodate the specific requests of the staff that they've done their fine tuning to make sure we comply with your ordinances and our approved plans.
Okay, thank you. This is a public hearing, so we will open public comment this time for item number 7, preliminary plats for Wildflower. Are there any comments? Invite you to come forward and state your name and address for the record, and keep your comments to about 3 minutes.
My name's Dina Wells.
Dino Wells, is that what you said?
Yes.
Hi, Dino.
I live at 614 West Casaba Court. It's the most southern cul-de-sac that abuts the elementary school. So my question was drainage. I don't know if the city or if you plan on making, I don't know what the correct engineering terms would be, but we get a lot of, let's just say our builders did not engineer any drainage because it all comes into our yard. So we're just wondering about that.
Okay.
And then I think that was all my, and maybe like just wondering when construction would begin. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Wells. Any other comments?
Bryce Benson, 1983 Belmont Drive. I'm
Right.
concerned also with the drainage. See, we got there right now, there's a nice ditch that collects it all, and that, you get one of those 1 in 25, 1 in 50 year storms, you like that ditch that keeps you dry. The other thing, the lady that was here earlier and the numbers and stuff she was throwing out, seems to me like these guys are trying to hoodwink you based off of what she said. So I hope you look at everything, and I hope that, like right behind me, I hope they're not going to be like these little dinky houses out here on 2100 North, on the north side, that are like, basically just all up and down, enough room to turn around in and 2 foot, space between them. Is that what you guys are doing right there behind me?
We'll address the questions
Okay,
after.
all right.
after we-
Well, I'm new.
We wanna hear.
I'm new at this. I'm kind of shaking.
Not ignoring you.
And I'm kind of shaking in my
That's
boots.
okay.
I apologize.
At this point, we're all ears.
This is all new to me, so if I'm out of line, tell me to get out, and I'll just go home and go to bed and get up to go to work in the morning. So,
Okay.
anyway, I just am concerned, because I've enjoyed that field, seeing the deer in it, antelope in it, a guy flying a kite in it this evening, I'm not excited to see somebody's back wall of a house, out my bedroom window. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Bryce. Any other comments? Okay, we'll close public comment at this time. And I would like to just mention one thing, just as a point. This is an administrative decision, so our decision tonight is based upon what is currently in the code and what's in the state law. And we're not even allowed to make our decision based upon hearsay or things that are opinion or we have to stick straight to the code on this decision. So that is what our decision is based on tonight. So we will go ahead and address some of these questions. We'll start with Mrs. Smith. Earlier in the evening when we opened up public comment for
Just a
generally.
correction. Her
Yes.
name is Klingon Smith.
Klingon Smith. Okay. We opened up and she had some questions. Hopefully we took some notes. I'll go through mine, but I'll turn the time over to staff to address some of her concerns.
Yeah,
Yeah, there was an email, and I'm sure you have that.
yeah, we got the email. It's on records in the minutes here.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a few emails between here and I interacted today through some email messages. Her concern obviously was thinking of lot size primarily. And so I just kind of did some basic work looking at, first I sent her this diagram here as well. I said, you can see the colors on here, you can see what the lot sizes are, and if you look on the diagram here, you got Harvest Elementary, and this is Saratoga Chase. That's where the smaller lots are being located, adjacent to those properties there. You get down in here, you're adjacent to existing Harvest Hills. I pointed out the fact that, okay, when you get in a cul-de-sac, yeah, you're going to have bigger lots in a cul-de-sac. That's just the nature of it. And so I pointed out that once you get into some of these interior lots in here, these lots are actually smaller than these 8,000 square foot lots here. There's a variety of lot sizes in Harvest Hills. There's even some very small ones down here. I don't know what the size of these ones are right in this location, but Harvest Hills has a wide variety of lots. And the way that the applicant, from my perspective, from a planning staff, and of course this is what's approved anyway, he's done a good job of putting the densities, matching lot sizes. What he's doing to what's already there is you get further interior to some of the projects here. Yeah, you go back down to smaller lot size, but those aren't going to be affected or have any effect on the existing Harvest Hills lots. And so we had a discussion on that. She had some discussion on the open space requirement. It is written in the code, in the village plan, or the community plan, maybe both, but it is written that the improvements that UDOT will make along the corridor, the trail with landscaping, that would be considered as part of the 30% required open space. And so I did point that out to her. I don't know if she was aware of that. It sounded like she was not aware of that, but that is an issue that she had. Hopefully I resolve that issue for her.
Why is that? Why is that open space allowed as part of it?
I was not here through the approval process. I think Nate or
Like I
Mark.
can tell my kids to go play on the freeway.
Yeah. Well,
Right?
yeah.
I'd
Be happy to.
Seriously.
I'd be
And Nate
happy
could
to add some
address that.
clarity to that.
Okay.
When it's appropriate.
Yes, please.
So, please remember that we look at Wildflower as a complete overall project. We don't see Plat 1A or the Mountain View Corridor. When we were planning for the entire community plan, we did an evaluation of the entire project. And as we did that, we looked at within the open space that was going to be provided, the Mountain View Corridor Trail System, which is an elaborate trail system that runs parallel to the freeway that will ultimately be built there. And it was included as part of the calculation, which is at 30%. I believe your current standard is 20%. If you back out the trail system within the Mountain View Corridor, we are at 23 or 24%, which is still 3% more than what your current code, if I was to walk through and just do a normal subdivision, would be required to do. So yes, it's included, but we still, even without it, exceed what your typical percentage open space would be. So we wanted to make sure it was counted. We really included it in the plan to make sure that UDOT remembered it, because they're obviously a part of this project, and we wanted them to include that and have it. But If you run the calculations the other way and just say it's not there and held us to the standard of your existing ordinances, we would be 3% over, and everybody would be saying, wow, we're 3% more than what we're required to be.
Maybe a more appropriate question would be, where is my family going to go play? How can I enjoy the land around my home? Maybe that's what's not being asked, but maybe that's what they're trying to get at.
And unfortunately, we have one more plat that is on its way. We have an overall open space plan that identifies that, and we're really excited because we've spent a lot of time actually working on this, and I think what we're going to bring to you in the next few months is going to get you really excited about that. But to answer your very specific question, for these homes, Plat D1, which is immediately to the north of this section, will be one of the larger improved open spaces on this side of the corridor. And we had hoped to be able to process that plat at the same time. The engineering for the climbing walls that we're proposing wasn't quite done, so we're just a couple of weeks behind, but you will be seeing that plat very shortly, and we will, as required per our plan, be dedicating that area as we go so that we don't get behind in open space. We'll always have enough open space dedicated to the city, to the HOA, to offset the percentage requirements that are in our plan. So if, Dave, you've got a village plan up, I can show you where D1 is, but it's,
Where's the book?
if you go back one,
Showed it.
well, yeah, well, that map shows it, the next one, yeah, that area to the north, that's where you can see the water tank there in the middle of the plan. All that area around there is a large improved park. I don't remember how many acres that is.
Yeah. The question wasn't necessarily for our satisfaction, it was more for the public and for answering her questions. I'm going to turn the time back over to staff and to you to address the rest of her questions that she had. One of them was specific. She said that the density was calculated on her 500-acre amount and the open space was calculated on the full size.
Yeah, when I got that comment from her, I didn't have time to look into that, so I'd have to default to Nate, see if he can explain the numbers of original approval, what the acreage he's at now.
Could you help us with that? So basically, she was saying that the density requirement was based upon 500 acres and the open space requirement was calculated based upon the full property. That's what her question was.
Yeah, let me go to it, right? I'll dig up the email here and read it.
Okay.
She says, has the acreage of this project changed since 2015? In the packet material, it was to include 598 residential acres, including the MVC land. By my calculation, 30% of that is 179 acres. So it is not true that the city is allowing Mr. Ship to calculate open space only on the developable land and not on the entirety of this project. 30% of 451 acres is 135 acres. If this is the case, I feel this is a bad precedent to set for future developments. If he gets the advantage to calculate density over the entire 598 acres, then the city should at a minimum require that open space be calculated by the same standard.
If I may address this, we knew when we did this village plan that we knew that we were going to have to include at least 24 acres of open space on the other side. And that's part of our village plan, and we are currently working with staff to dedicate that to the HOA. So Nora is aware of that. So we do meet our village plan.
I can also speak to that. I was in a meeting with them, probably a couple weeks ago, where we sat down and talked about how do we provide the open space requirements for it. As far as the gross, total calculations and things of that nature, I couldn't answer the question, but I do know that we've been working with them to make sure that they stay ahead on their open space dedications so that they never fall behind as they go through their plats.
All right, did you have any other responses to her email or her comments?
Yeah, she was thinking, she made the point, well, the cul-de-sac lots are bigger. Why aren't the lots on the other side of the cul-de-sac on Nate's side that same size? Again, the nature when you have a cul-de-sac lot, say that the minimum lot size in the zone is 8,000 square feet. Most cul-de-sac lots, you get 10, 12, 14,000 square feet, and just because that's how it works out. Yeah, and she made some comment. I don't know what that was. The only thing that I can go by, what you can go by, is what's in the approved village plan, and do the 10 plats meet what's in the village plan? And our review says yes, they do.
I might address that too. We were required, where the pumpkin patch neighborhood was, to have 10,000 square foot lots that mirrored the opposite side. That's not part of any of these plats, though. That'll be coming in the upcoming plats in another area of this village plan.
That explains a lot.
Okay. Let's move on to the comments from Dina Wells. There's a question about drainage and see, one other question. Did you get notes on that? When does construction begin? I couldn't even read my own handwriting on that one.
So your question was drainage around houses was your main emphasis?
Yes. Could you address how you're going to deal with drainage? They already have a drainage problem. Is the grade going toward their land or away from their land? Could you just talk about that a little bit?
Sure, you bet. There's a massive drainage problem. And we see that, we get it. A large portion of the Camp Williams property historically drains down through those canyons across this property and hits those homes. So the temporary fix was by the previous developer and builder, to dig a ditch that captures that. The good news is that the majority of that flow will be picked up and handled when the freeway construction happens. So the big massive flows that have been coming down across the field will be picked up by the road. Internally, we have a master storm drain plan that will pick up those flows and divert them through their historical drainage points away from the homes.
So will your development be contributing to any flow? Will the flow come from your development into the existing neighborhoods?
No. In fact, we're going to be diverting all of the flow away from these existing neighborhoods.
Okay. When will construction begin?
We hope to start construction here as soon as possible.
So just on a side note with that, as Nate has indicated, the road construction going on this summer will have its own set of SWIP plans to prevent stormwater from migrating across the site. So that in and of itself is going to be a huge benefit. All of the stormwater from the roads will actually land in a detention basin just south of kind of as the road narrows and comes closer to Aspen Hills Boulevard. So all of the storm drain issues will ultimately be resolved with the construction of this project, and Mr. Shipp, when he begins constructing, will also be required to follow SWIP. So if he were to remove the channels or basins or anything like that, he would be required to make sure that he's not impacting those other properties as well.
Okay.
SWIP is Stormwater Protection Plan.
Sorry, go ahead.
Pollution prevention, sorry.
You mentioned that all the construction transportation will go south on your property. Did UDOT make any, did they say anything about where their construction traffic is going to go? Is it going to go in the same place, or will they use the streets that are already?
I can't answer for the state.
Okay.
We normally, would we allow UDOT to use the existing streets? Okay. Okay, so Bryce Benson had two questions. One was about drainage, which we've addressed, and the second one was about small house lots, or small houses. I think we have to address that as well. Good. Okay, so at this time, we'll turn the time over to the Planning Commission for a comment. We already previously closed public comment.
Okay. Yes.
Commissioner Kilgore.
Since this is an administrative recommendation, is applicant okay and able to comply with the conditions in the staff and city engineer reports as they are in the current staff report?
Yes.
Let's see, on your plat plans for parking, looks like plat A, 1B, plat A3, plat B2 and B3 and C1 all have 4 times parking than the number of lots, which is good. But plat A2 is only 2 times. Is that an error or is there a reason for that? You know what I'm saying? So you've got like 26 lots, and then you have 4 times 26 lots for all the other plats. But then for plat A2, you only have 2 times. So it kind of stood out to me that it was a different calculation. I was wondering why, because I couldn't tell from the product that it warranted a different calculation. Especially since the street sizes won't be different, so you'll have more traffic. Well, actually, it's actually better because you'll have less traffic on that one plat. But I was just wondering why it's 2 times rather than 4 times.
As far as the parking goes?
Yeah.
Sure.
See if this is what you're talking about. So on these plats, you can see right here, for instance, this is a build-to line. So some of these plats are set up where you're gonna have more landscape in front of a house than others. Obviously, you're gonna have a driveway there at some point, so that driveway could be twice as long as a standard driveway, could provide more parking because of that. Maybe that's what you're thinking of.
Yeah, I couldn't tell from the drawings that was what made it different. There were several plats where you didn't have any parking information at all. Like, I don't know if they were just missing or if it's just because that's just the map, but like A1A doesn't have any parking info on it. And plat B1 doesn't have any parking info either. But the ones that did have parking info, it's in the little box, or let's see.
Right.
That one was missing. That one I couldn't find.
Yeah, you see, here's a good example. It's the build-to line. So all of this here in the front is going to be landscaping and driveway. So in some of these other ones, yeah, you're going to have more parking on some of these lots than others.
Yeah, so what makes A2 different? Since all the other ones had 4 times, but A2 didn't, only had 2 times. I couldn't tell from the A2, what is it? Plat A2 that it looks any different than all the other ones. Again, A1A doesn't have it.
Because there's more curve in the lots
I think it just has to do with the way that the curve lines up on the lots. The product is exactly the same. It's all
Right.
detached, single-family.
That's why I wasn't sure why this plat alone has half the parking that everyone else has.
I don't have an answer for you. I just know that it's the exact same product that we're building everywhere else in that subdivision.
Okay.
But I don't know.
I guess it's not a problem, right?
Parking requirement?
There is a parking requirement, but I think you do meet it.
Right, we do meet it.
You do meet it
But
at the
on every
minimum.
lot, but some of them will be much deeper. The ones that have narrower frontages are much deeper.
Okay.
And we build this product in Eagle Mountain in Evans Ranch, and it looks very beautiful with staggered setbacks like that. And
Yeah, I have no issue with any of that. I'm just wondering why one plat out of all of them has half the parking that the other ones, when I can't really tell from the product. But I guess it is just what the planning director is saying has got to do with the landscape. But it wasn't clear to me on the map that's the reason.
I think there's a term for how you radius this deeper landscape on some of these lots. I can't remember what it was. There's a national planning advocate that's come up with this, and he has some books published out. I don't know if it was Nate, we met with it one time, but that's where I was introduced to it. I think there's a certain name for it, but I can't remember what they call it.
The technical term is curvilinear design.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's the idea of taking a
Or,
straight.
coving, I guess, too.
Coving, yeah. So you take a straight street and you bend it a little bit, and then you offset within the lots
the staggering of the homes on the front yard, so that as you drive down a road, you're never looking just at rows. You're seeing the different reliefs and parts of the side of the house rather than just straight on.
Well, again, this being administrative and you meet the minimum parking requirements, I think that's fine, but, so that's great about the curvilinear design and the other one, but is that what you decide, is that what caused the difference? I mean.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. 19.04 establishes setbacks of 25 feet for the front, 20 feet for the side, 20 to 25 feet for the rear. But why do these differ for the applicant? You've got like 8 by 20, 8 by 16, 6 by 12 on the side lots, and I was wondering if that.
All of those side yard setbacks and front yard setbacks were set at our community plan when we went through this process.
Okay. Then I asked the staff then why we set that for the community plan. Does anyone remember? Because some of them are a lot smaller.
Again, it goes back to when an applicant comes in under the planned community zone, discussion earlier tonight on the other one, they have a right to request something that deviates from the standard code.
Okay.
And if the council.
Was because when we do the curvilinear design, the coving, if you will, and you take a house and you offset it and twist it, then it becomes a little bit closer. If you just keep them all apart and you keep them 20 feet apart, then they're all just this way. But if I'm bending houses and I'm turning them, then points of a house become closer. But in reality, it actually feels much more open because you're creating more space in between the homes. So that was why, and that's why I think everyone felt good about approving the smaller setbacks when we did it.
Okay.
Just to go back, as far as a parking requirement goes in a single-family dwelling, the code requires 2 stalls in a garage.
Right.
And that garage at a minimum would be 20 feet, which then allows, unless you're driving a F-350 dually, you can still park in front of the garage door and you shouldn't be overhanging the sidewalk.
Okay. So I asked the planning staff, do we have confidence that the numbers in the traffic, sanitation, and water studies that were in the packet and their recommendations in 2015 are still valid today in 2018?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. The water study in the packet recommends construction of Zone 3 secondary water pond to be delayed until Tank 4 capacity be fully allocated by the city. Just checking to see that this is the direction the city will be going. It was a recommendation. I was just wondering to make sure that that's the direction that the city wants to go with waiting to build that secondary water pond until Tank 4 capacity is fully allocated by the city.
Engineer?
Yeah, if that's what we said, that's what we meant.
Well, it was a recommendation, and so I was just wondering if that's what is going to happen. Since we're recommending.
I can speak to this because I don't think it came from you. I think it actually came from Jeremy.
Okay.
And the emails back and forth as of 5:59 today with Jeremy was, thanks, Nate. Point of clarification. Want to make sure again that there's sufficient storage capacity to supply the existing Zone 3 areas in Harvest Hill so you can swap the culinary tank out. And the confirmation that we gave back to him from LEI, our engineering company, was, yes, that's part of the master plan and will be constructed.
Okay.
So as of 6 o'clock this evening, your staff was again verifying that that's the case, and we're reconfirming that, yes, we're good.
Great, okay. The packet gives 2 options for disposing stormwater. The first proposed is into existing canal, and the second proposed is to discharge into downstream storm drainage facilities. So which option will we go?
We have in place an agreement with the canal to discharge our water at historic rates there.
Okay, so that's been decided then.
Yes.
Great. I asked this with the earlier applicant. Do we have any reports regarding wildlife migration routes? Is there something that was?
Yes, again, at Village Plan, we resolved all of that.
Okay. Just a couple more. City Council Staff Report, Exhibit G, CC, and Rs. The city has the authority, oh yeah, this is a question. The city has the authority to require a developer to restrict the number of cars owned and or leased by property owners. Is that true? The city has the right to tell the applicant to to tell the applicant, to tell their future buyers how many cars they're allowed to own.
It's glorious, isn't it?
I mean, that's what the city council staff report says.
CC&Rs and things like that do that actually all the time. So for example, in my homeowners association, I'm restricted to the number of cars that I can have out. I can't work on a vehicle outside of my garage. I can't have a vehicle that's not operable for X number of months or something like that, and I would then be in violation of my CC&R. So in answer to your question, it happens all the time. I'm not sure that we really.
I knew that CC&Rs could be that way because it's something that the residents and the property owner or the developer, create. But can the city require that of the developer to make sure that the CC&Rs did that? Is that, or is that the same question?
I don't know what that's stemming from. Is that a requirement? And
It's yeah, it was in the staff report.
are you talking about owning or storing? 'Cause
No, it says-
those are two different things.
Yeah, it says
How many are on premises?
The
and how
number
many are not?
that cars can be, number of cars owned or leased by property owners.
Well,
I'm sure that was a mistake. 'cause
It probably is a
We're not gonna regulate that, but we could regulate the number of cars that are stored
on premises.
on the driveway, on the premises.
So that I could
I will
understand.
tell you that within our CCNRs, and I appreciate the fact that you brought up the parking requirement, we do require within our garages that those parking stalls remain open for parking, and have put in place a provision that if somebody has a request for a parking variation, meaning they would like to park more than the cars allowed in their driveway out on street, they have to go to the HOA and ask for a parking pass to do that. The HOA at that point has the right to come do a physical inspection of the garage to verify that somebody hasn't filled up their garage with storage and then is overflowing into the street with their cars. So we are regulating that from an HOA perspective.
That I
on the
totally
front
understand, because our CC&Rs, they have those kinds of requirements as well. But let me just make.
As far as owned versus leased cars, I've
Yeah,
not
'cause if
ever
that's not the
seen that.
case-
I don't plan on asking somebody if their car is leased or owned.
Okay, well, that's why I wanted to ask it. So let me find the exact spot, so that if we have to do something about that, then we can.
It says the city has, that it complies with the city code.
See, but I don't see.
And that made me wonder, I didn't.
I did ask if I could restrict the color of the university flag that's flown out in front of the home.
Red and white only?
Color I was
Or
regulating.
the alumni
Oh, I
status
need to
of
be more
property.
politically correct, so
Right.
we won't be doing that either, I don't think.
And that's not in the code, so this is administrative, just keep in mind.
Yeah, well, it's in the exhibit as part of the CC&R.
Oh, okay, that's where I saw it.
Yeah, if it's a CC&R, then the city has, of course, if it says the city, but yeah, that should be correct, but would not be the ones to enforce something like that.
Okay, so on Exhibit G, paragraph D, that's the issue.
And this is in, not the staff report, one of the exhibits to the staff report,
Well,
where you're reading.
it's, how the staff report had all the
Right,
previous documents?
right.
It was one of those documents.
Okay.
Yeah, and it says, D, limit the number of motor vehicles owned, leased, or otherwise possessed by occupants on property within the project which are parked on and/or operated therefrom on the subject property by incorporating the same standard for public streets found in the city code. So,
Last part of it doesn't say that we're restricting the number of vehicles owned. We're restricting the number of vehicles which are stored on the property.
okay, so it's my interpretation that the first part about limit the number of motor vehicles owned, leased, or otherwise possessed by occupants, that's not the,
Well,
Point.
the second part of it says which, so there's two requirements, owned and which are stored on the property. So if they store them not on the property, then they can own as many vehicles as they want,
okay.
so.
What does
We're
store
not,
mean then?
we're not gonna enforce CC&Rs either, that's gonna be the HOA that enforces those.
What does store mean?
Right, but
Does it mean park? Does it mean store for,
Good question.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I'm asking is this is something that the city, I mean, we required that the applicant put into the CCNR, so that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, okay, so I see.
Yeah, you
As
see what I'm
long as
saying?
they have it in their CCNRs, that's all that we're gonna care about.
Okay,
That addressed in your CCNRs,
Yes.
okay,
then we're good.
All right.
Meets that condition.
startling. Are there any known archaeological sites or artifacts on the property?
No?
And last question. Why is 19.26.13 on large-scale planned community districts included in this?
Where's that you're reading then? Is
So
that another exhibit?
That's actually the section of code allows us to create. That's last year.
Yeah, so I thought that this particular one only is what allows for district area plans, but since this development is not big enough for a district area plan, there's no reason for it, right? But that was how I interpreted this. Just, well, they're not big enough.
They're not big.
Yes.
They're fallen.
Right, so that's why is the large-scale planned community district code requirement in this? Well, it's part
I think
of
that's in a
the,
previous approval, right? I mean, I don't know that.
yeah, because, I mean, it says that these are the codes that you have to comply by, and yet you don't have to comply by this one, and yet it's in there. So, it's 19.26.13.
I think that code starts in reference to the large-scale district, and then it also defines a community plan and then a village plan concept throughout that section of code. I don't know your code by heart. but-
Yeah, it says planned community districts that include more than 2,000 acres, and since yours doesn't, this whole section of code doesn't apply to you. So I'm just wondering, maybe we just
There
take
isn't
that
a whole
out.
lot in that as far as specific requirements. So I wouldn't be too concerned with that. If you want to, I don't know that
To
we
just
could
delete it.
revisit that approval and have that struck out, but
Yeah.
I think we're comfortable with where we're at. The fact that now you're getting into the very specific regulations as you're approving the plat.
Right, so
But-
I don't want any additional restrictions in the approval that doesn't apply to you anyway. You know, that, you know what I mean? So I think, I'm just saying that we should probably strike that unless there was a reason why this was put in there. So if there's no reason, then we should just strike it.
I had a lawyer tell me once that, he said, whatever two lawyers put together, let no man put asunder. So I think we should trust our lawyer on this one, but.
Yeah, but.
I don't know what's in there. I'm not sure what you're referring to. So are
I
you
think
going
he's
back
referring
to
to
the
the
original
finding in option 1
community plan approval?
of the staff recommendation option listed in the
Okay,
recommendation
So this isn't the
alternatives.
staff report then?
So it's a finding that.
Yeah, strike that as a finding.
Yeah, I mean, otherwise they don't meet the code. I mean,
I
well,
thought you were talking about approvals
Yeah, I think
years ago.
section .07 refers to the community plan. I mean, I think we comply with the guiding standards in .06 because we're not large enough to comply with it. So we move by
Yeah, just,
down to the next section, which is .07, and we comply with
right,
that.
so
as well.
therefore, there's no
Strike
reason to
it.
have this in there at all.
just strike it as a condition,
Okay.
absolutely.
Or
It's
finding.
not even a condition, it's just a finding.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay, strike it as a finding then.
Yeah,
Can you give the reference to the finding?
that's 19.26.13, large-scale planned community districts. That doesn't need to be in there.
Mr. Chair, to answer your question too, on option 1 for the recommendations, that is number 2 in the findings.
Wonderful.
And that was it for me.
Okay. Thank you for your thoroughness. Do we have Commissioner Steele was next, I believe. Are you ready?
I think so.
Okay.
I have a question, and hopefully you all can answer. What is your longest block length? I've been looking, and because it curves, I can't really scale it.
I don't know. I know we've had that conversation with the staff, and they've done their measurements, and we have all determined that we comply with your ordinance. I don't have that number off the top of my head, though.
So none of them are more than 1,000 feet? Then?
Not without pedestrian access.
Okay. That answered that. And this one is a little bit of a sticky one. I understand that you've been working with the school district, and they have that.
Going with this.
Yes, and there really should be a pedestrian path between what is it? 3A. 3A. There should be a pedestrian access, and I know that the council, one of the council has even brought this up. Understand that you're getting stonewalled. I'm wondering, are you still at a...
We have been told that the safety of the children in the attorney's, in the school district attorney's eyes means that they have a limited access where they have one point of control that goes through the front main office, and that everybody goes in and out of that point, period. Everywhere else needs to be locked off and shut down. So that's how it is in the Jordan School District. That's how it is in the Canyon School District. That's not uncommon in today's age to have that position from a school district. I understand. I have kids. They have to walk all the way around in my neighborhood to get to the front door where they're allowed to enter and come on and off school grounds. But that's not a decision we make. We're being told that they're not at all, they do not want to encourage anybody to go anywhere else other than through the front door.
It's been done on other schools, and so I'm not putting it on you. I'm going to ask, Mark, could you work with Rob Smith and see if we can get one? It makes sense.
I was in the same meeting with him.
No way, huh?
They just, they're set on it. So I would say, you know, if you've got, if you're friends with Paula or someone above them that will change that decision, great. But that's, their response to us has been no. So.
Isn't our
Like, it was
only...
not only no, it was no.
I think their answer was similar to, we have an attorney, he's telling us this, and we have safety officers, and we have protocol, and all of the experts, and we're all hearing from all of those individuals one point of access.
Okay.
From what I understand, the only influence we have is health and safety as far as the school coming in anyway. Isn't that right?
Yeah, I mean, so our health safety issue is hey, it's a quicker route, but I guess, you know, some would argue that them walking a little further is probably better for their health in the long run.
Well, what I'm concerned about is some of that may require a bus for those kids, some of the kids, and that affects our pockets. And so that was my concern on that. Plus,
I do have another question relating to the school, and this is one that we do need some help figuring out, and this is probably not the place to bring this up, but we have a fencing requirement that's part of our village plan that runs a double fence up against their chain link fence, and under your ordinance, we're required to take down the other fence, and the school doesn't want to remove their
parallel
chain link fence. So we're just figuring this out as of this morning.
We do not,
So,
for health and safety reasons.
which we don't really like.
no,
We'd rather not have the chain link, but I don't know that we can do
I
anything
even
about
hate
that.
to ask this, but will the school allow you to or allow a homeowner to put in the rubber slats into that fence so that they've got a little more privacy? Because they won't have any if Would that be?
I don't know the answer to that, but
Could that?
it may be appropriate because we have found a conflict between our fencing and what they're saying to have in your motion tonight, that we work with the staff and the school district to resolve that issue.
That might be one. We don't allow double fencing,
But we don't, we also don't have any code against a hedge or something that could make it opaque.
Well, that's true.
And through that conversation with them, I do promise to bring up again pedestrian access to the back of the school.
And
And if they're willing to do it, we'll put it in. But
And I'm going to ask somebody to refresh my memory, but I believe it is, well, you don't have it marked on this one. Isn't it Harvest Hills Drive? Between the pink and the lavender. Isn't that Harvest, is it Harvest Moon or Harvest Hills?
which road are you referring to?
The one between the pink and the lavender.
Pink and lavender is Harvest Moon.
Okay.
Are you talking up to the left, or, I mean, they both.
Oh, okay, well.
The other one's
they're right.
peach.
Yes,
The
thank you.
The south is Harvest Hills Boulevard, the furthest.
Right or the left, Sandy?
Well, the one right there.
Okay.
That's Harvest Hills there.
Okay, and do I remember that at this point, they only have a sidewalk on one side?
I recall there's sidewalk on both sides of Harvest Hills Boulevard there. I guess we can go to Street View and find out real quick.
Well, as I remember, there was a question about it, and I know I said that just because we'd made a mistake in the past, we didn't need to make it again. And that, to me, would be a safety issue for the school district. Just saying.
What did you say?
Yeah, and which side? So they're going to have to, yeah.
And you can go on this side.
Mm-hmm.
Other side. So it meanders back and forth across the road.
Dave's looking it up there for you.
I think Commissioner Chapman was quick on the trigger and
Here you got
had it.
sidewalk on both
Both
sides.
sides. So one of them, the north side at Saratoga Chase doesn't have the park strip. It's a combination curb gutter strip.
Right here.
So I think what we're looking at is if you scroll past the roundabout, go further east. But I mean, it's past the school, so maybe it's not.
Sidewalk on both sides.
So keep going.
Yeah,
Now turn right.
Not right there is where.
And right there is where it goes a couple blocks, then you cross the street and it goes a couple more blocks. Crosses back, goes a couple blocks. It's an animal corridor, probably.
It actually has.
Yeah, it's past the school.
but that would be one argument I would use is safety of the kids, because that way they don't have to cross the street, and they,
Yeah, ultimately, it's going to be up to the school district. They say
I know.
yes or no.
well,
Any other comments on that, Commissioner
I
Stewart?
don't think so. I think I've, I did have a change in the staff report because I spent hours. The approval was actually in, it's at the very start, and it talks about previous approvals. The community plan, or the village plan, was not approved on 6/22/17, but it was approved in 16. We had a planning commission meeting on the 22nd, but that wasn't part of it. And then I went back and I looked at all the minutes and everything, and it actually was in 2016. So in case somebody's trying to look for it, it is, I'll make it easy on them.
Seems like a long time ago.
It was.
I just remember you told us how old your son was and how long we've been doing this is how long he's been alive.
Well, how old is he now?
He's 5.
The son is now 5.
he was born. One of the, right, at one of the hearings or during, and you weren't here.
He was 3 at the time. Anyway.
No, he wasn't, he was born.
Okay,
Actually, I
that's right.
do remember, it's
But then he
actually not
came
my
back.
son, it's my daughter. She's 3.
Oh, okay,
That's-
Yes.
okay.
I do remember, yes.
Do you have any other comments, Commissioner Steele? Any other comments from the planning commission?
I had
Okay.
2 questions, actually. Okay, so in this packet you gave us, there were some examples of alley-loaded homes. It doesn't look like there are any here on the map. So no alley-loaded homes? Okay.
Not in this phase, no.
But there will be in future phases?
Yes, we have some alley-loaded product on the west side of the Mountain View corridor.
And is this that final plat that's going to come to us later? Is that included in that, or?
That will be in a new village plan that
Okay.
comes in front of you in a few months, and it will be part of the Mountain View corridor receiving zone that was set aside for that kind of a product.
Okay. And then my other question was about these, so you mentioned a little bit parking passes. So these parking passes are for residents who don't have enough space in their garage or whatever, but what about guests and visitors? Can they park on the street without a parking pass, or how does that work?
As long as they're compliant with city ordinances, yes. It's a public road. But really, that applies in a private road scenario. So in some of these future projects that will bring you, where we have alley-loaded product and we have some private streetscapes, that's where the HOA will be seeing that the most.
Thanks.
Commissioner Chapman?
Gordon, what is the width of these streets? Is it the old or the new code?
It's according to the community plan.
So that was before the change.
Yeah, I actually looked that up today, and they are at the 50, the local is at the 56, not the 59, and so that's what they're entitled to.
Okay.
And the reason, the reason I answered you that way is because with these community plans, they can be neither the old nor the new, they can
Sure.
be unique.
Sure, okay. And then, Gordon, are you satisfied that they're abiding by good street hierarchy principles? Local roads filtering to collectors?
Yes.
Okay. And then just an observation, because this is administrative, but you have, it appears, plenty of amenities towards the north side, but in the higher density section, it doesn't look like there's really open space or parks or anything like that. And once again, scale is an issue here. It's hard to see distance. You have towards the north side, you have that bigger park, it looks like. But then when you get in the south side, there doesn't look like there's much, and you have a higher density place. Once again, this is administrative. If you follow the code, that's great. It's just an observation of not many places for, and I'd imagine smaller families are going to move in there with maybe, 1 or 2 kids. Looks like all of your concentration of amenities are towards the north. So just an observation, not a problem. That's all I had.
Okay.
You go ahead.
You want to bounce back? Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No.
No, and I was just the gentleman was concerned about looking at the back of a fence or a house, especially if it's 2-story, and I've brought this up before. Do you think you might be able to put a little frou-frou on the back, like shutters or deck or something that breaks that up?
That's a legal term, frou-frou.
That's right.
It is now.
And it's a request, not a, it's nothing to do with approval. It's just a suggestion that it might help.
I get it. I guess I'd answer that by saying that each home design that's submitted to be built will be put through a very thorough design review committee process where we'll be evaluating all sides of the house and how it will appeal and look from all of those affected by it. And we'll do our best to make sure that every house that we build in there will be appealing to everybody who sees it. Now, I promise you that won't be the case because I can't appeal to everybody, but we'll do our best.
Yeah, so often we get just plain backs, just do all the way down the road. And I can see why someone that would be a neighbor would be concerned. And that's, as I say, it's just a request.
As the new neighbor, we'll get to look at the back of this fine gentleman's home as well, so I get it.
Yeah, and you wonder what it is. Very good, thank you.
There are the design guidelines in the village plan, which just, up on the screen you see right here. So it does give some standards of materials that have to be used, that sort of thing.
But it doesn't say anything about the rear elevation, as I remember.
It doesn't look specifically, but by default, the Title 19 also does require four-sided architect, well, on a house, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, please do.
Price range going to be on these homes?
Well, that's a great question. We hope to see homes, well, let me put it this way. We anticipate homes starting in the mid 300 range in here, but probably will be some in excess of 400,000 or 500,000.
Okay, so my turn. I get to wait till the very end. This is a very complex property. You have a whole range of densities. You don't have a river running through it, but you have a freeway running through it, and there's side roads, and you have elevation issues and drainage, and you've done a lot of work on this. And so, and I also have seen that you've been very flexible through this whole process. So good work on that, and thank you for listening to the Planning Commission and to staff and working out all our details. I know that we've all had many comments, even in the packet. If you weren't here the last time, you can read and see that we gave you all kinds of requirements, and you finally, worked with all those. So good work on that. I think we've addressed all the concerns that I've had previously, everybody here, and I'm not going to belabor any more of those. So I will entertain a motion.
I move to forward a positive recommendation to the City Council on Wildflower Plats A, A1A, A01B, A2, A3, B1, B2, B3, C1, and R with the findings and conditions in the staff report dated January the 4th, 2018, with the exception of the finding number 2 that needs to be deleted.
We have a motion from Commissioner Steele. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Commissioner Kilgore. Any question on the motion? I have a question. Please specify what we're deleting.
The finding number 2.
Was that the strike the finding 19.26.13 large-scale planned community districts?
It's
as a
06,
condition?
I think.
Now you're deleting it?
No, yeah, the issue should be on 1.3, point 1.3.
0.13.
Yeah, that's what the issue should be.
Okay, good.
Can I just ask a quick question? On my findings, it doesn't say .13.
No, mine says 06.
Yeah.
That's why I'm curious, because the one that we wanted to strike
There's nothing.
Why don't
was
you just
19.26.13.
keep it general and say whatever reference to the planned community district in the findings, and staff can do that
Sounds good.
as the staff reports prepared for the council.
Commissioner Steele, do you agree to that?
I agree.
Let's see, who was our second? Commissioner Kilgore.
I do too.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you for all your work. I am amazed that we're going to have the Mountain View Corridor in there this year. That'll be welcomed. Hopefully it'll connect to something. Hopefully it'll connect to something more than 2100 North. Well, as long as it goes somewhere. Okay. Item number 8, approval of minutes. Is everybody taking a look at December 14th, 2017 minutes?
Thank you.
I'll entertain a motion for item number 8. Unless you have any changes to make.
I
Okay.
move to approve the minutes of the Planning Commission meeting on December 14th, 2017.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Steele. Motion, Commissioner Brush. Any questions on the motion?
I will be abstaining.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We still had a quorum on that. We had 4 members who, and the motion passes. Reports of action.
None.
Commission comments.
I have 4 comments. First, I would like to make sure the record got the quote from our city manager that no respecting deer will use an underpass. The second thing, and I know this has come up several times, is it's really hard to evaluate an issue, and luckily this one was more of an administrative thing where you could say, yes, it meets code, or no, it's not. And I know it's the tendency of citizens, being a citizen, to evaluate packets later, but we got a flurry of emails right before this meeting, and that's really tough to make an educated decision on what we're doing. So I know the staff is aware of it. I know the staff is considering how we address those things. I'm just restating that it makes it challenging for everyone, and I think it's challenging for the public as well.
Right, just if I could jump in before you go to your third.
Sure.
That's understandable, obviously, but obviously the public, they have a right to give us any comments at any time. We just do our best to get them to you. Ultimately, you'd still have the right to say, hey, maybe this is information we need to consider further, and ultimately you could still continue an item if it warrants that. That'd be up to you.
Okay.
We can also choose whether to consider it.
Because it's usually public clamor.
For me, I'm off work at 4 on a train, eat dinner, and I'm here.
Yeah.
And then I don't have time for email between that, and
So,
I don't have time for it at work either. So.
And potentially, it's, this commission has tried to respond to the public with diligence, and there could come a time where we simply have to say, no, we have to continue this to evaluate it further, and I guess we just have to be okay with that decision. Sure.
And on the other hand, though, just to play the other side of the coin, that's could be no different than someone just pops up with a microphone and gives you the same information. You have to address it.
Which we would have done had Mrs. Smith not had her comments. We would have read her comments in.
But, I mean, even so, I guess I'm comparing apples to oranges when a applicant sends stuff at the last minute and we're getting it at the last minute, so maybe it's not as big of an issue. The third question or comment is, we expanded the roads, and the reasoning from what you said, Gordon, was that if there's a car parked on both sides of the roads, it's difficult for a fire truck to get up there, so it's a health and safety issue. And so has the city made plans to address, or are you going to address all of the local roads in the city that are not 59 feet? Are you closing down one side of those streets, or does the city have plans to address that if it is a health and safety issue?
No.
So it is not a health and safety issue?
We can't go back by right-of-way, and as a preference going forward, ease for going forward, sure, but we can't go back and retrofit everything. That's just cost prohibitive to the residents. Which side do you widen? Whose park strips do you shorten? I mean, it's not something that we would consider.
No,
This is a fire code issue, so in particular instances, the fire marshal has the authority to make some changes there.
Well,
That's the extent of it.
No, I don't disagree with any of that. I just have heard rumors that, once again, hearsay of painting one side of the curb red, and so it was a curiosity thing. I think clarity of communication is good. You've cleared that up.
Right.
So.
The one thing that I would say is we did experience near an apartment condo project where individuals were parking on the streets and creating the issue. And so we did go and actually install some signage and some striping. I believe it was just signage in that area. We don't want to be in the business of painting curbs each year, spring. It's just too big of a process. But we have gone and installed that in that location because of the repeated parking problems. And so in that case, we may address it, but it would be in a similar thing. But no, we have no intention of doing that citywide.
Okay, perfect, thank you. And then I've continued, Commissioner Steele brought it up again today about the backs of houses, and has brought that up in as consideration for the city, or for the city to consider. And for whatever reason, that continues to stick in my mind as well. I don't know that I have a solid, one way or the other how I feel about that, but I see as an issue that could be have some consideration. And so I think it would be, I think the city should take that into consideration and come back with a recommendation, however the city recommends. So That's it.
I have a comment. So Fox News 13, Fox 13 News, whatever, local station. Yeah, local station, I didn't see it either, but I was passed a link. They reported that there's a private group that's already applied to the Utah Lake Commission and everything for an island to be built in the middle of the lake with buildings and all this stuff. How much does the city have? Okay.
That's land is owned by the engineers.
It was
right?
reported by Councilwoman Barch at a recent city council meeting that they had gone and done a presentation for them. It's in state sovereign lands. It wouldn't be part of our city, to our knowledge at this point. It's 24 years worth of dredging or something like that. I'm not sure at this point we have a comment as a city.
It would certainly be
That's
zoned
supposed to be-
lakefront.
And that's supposed to be good for the environment.
When I read the article and everything, it didn't seem like it, but they said that in order for the lake to be restored, it would cost something like $6.4 billion, and so why not bring private money into it instead of the state? But I was just wondering, if we can't even fill the empty Smith's building in our city on solid land, how they plan to build buildings on the lake? Or what developer is going to spend the money to build buildings on a lake?
Well, I don't know the names of the developers. I believe someone would spend money to do that. I would say that as I understand it, the economics of it, I mean, think about it. If land is vacant in the cities surrounding this development, and they can get that for a square footage that's substantially less, I would think the economics would drive development in those areas.
I agree.
If there's scarcity, like for example in Manhattan, that's where you see these outrageous prices and there's really tall skyscrapers because the economy makes it viable to go vertical with these enormous skyscrapers for the value. So I don't understand why they would want to do that. I don't understand the economics behind it. I don't understand, but go for it, good luck, and I'll be interested to see where it develops.
Perhaps there's some rich oil barons, oil sheiks in the Middle East, because they've done it over there.
Well, then
I just said this isn't Dubai.
Yeah.
Well, and one thing is, if you look at an earthquake map of this area, we on dry land are, we're on rock. But out in the middle of the lake, there's all kinds of fissures. And so they might have more problems than they
Liquefaction.
What's the mythical city that went in the ocean?
Atlantis.
There you go. You can call it Atlantis.
Migration patterns?
All right.
I have one other thing.
Yes.
It's just a
to do with the
warning
city?
for everybody except Brian. We now have a new traffic light at Market Street. So maybe it's been there for longer than I thought, but it was a surprise to me tonight. Thank heavens it was green. Because you're not going that way, not going home that way.
All right. Any other comments?
Yes. And to build on Brian's comment, I had occasion to go into West Valley code.
Congratulations.
Well, I went into their code, and it's
Get out the popcorn.
they actually have regulations for a design of residential. So I think if they can do it, we certainly can.
I believe Springville does too. We'll take a look. I've got it written down.
Okay.
Director's report.
Just one thing, which you brought up earlier, about former Commissioner Hayden. Do we want to do anything, Mark? I don't know. Is there a standard procedure of anything?
Yeah, we normally give something.
Kirk brought it up
for-
earlier, so I don't know if we
We do something for years of service. We usually have some kind of placard. He's been here for more than 4. He was here before I was
Yes,
here.
Dave should have ordered that and got that pulled together a long time ago. And we'll look at Dave getting that corrected. And then
That's Dave
getting
Johnson, who's the,
that Stroud. And then we'll have Stroud, invite him back to present that to him.
Could you invite him
I
back?
will, yeah.
Thank you.
Have we had any, are they going to interview, or do they have someone from a previous group that they're going to choose from?
Yes.
Yes.
There were that
One
many.
of those two.
They
Multiple.
may interview, they may
Choice
use someone
question
from a
and
past
answer, yeah.
group.
It's in the court of the mayor right now, so we're just waiting.
All right, without objection, we adjourn.
Oh, I wouldn't be,
Those come after 9 o'clock, so.
it wouldn't be a meeting without.
When you get late, they just come up.